Broadcasting live from the Wellness Wonderland, you're listening to the Wellness Wonderland Radio. I'm Katie, and each week I chat with the most inspirational people on the planet on how to stay inspired in all areas of life. As you listen, feel free to tweet at me at Katie Dalebout or use the hashtag Wellness Wonderland. I'd love to hear your aha moments. So grab your headphones and listen on the go, or cuddle up with a notebook as we dive in deep with authentic conversations right here in Wonderland. Welcome back, guys, to another week of the podcast. I'm so excited to get into this week's episode with the founder and CEO of Mind Body Green. He's here in the Wellness Wonderland, and he's going to talk to you about his new book and starting Mind Body Green and a bunch of other things. It's a really great conversation. But before I get into that, I want to give you some announcements as usual. So number one, my book is out in, 2 weeks. 2 weeks. It's crazy. So make sure that you pre-order the book to get lots of bonuses. I haven't really been talking about the bonuses much, but if you pre-order the book, you can get different bonuses at different levels. So if you get 2 books, one for you and a friend, you get a certain thing. If you get 3 books, you get other things. So it's really cool. Just go over to my website. The link is in the show notes, but the book page of my website, all the info's there. But some of the bonuses, just to give you a preview, if you order 2 books, you get 3 exclusive interviews, and one is with friend of the podcast, friend of me personally, Jordan Bach, one with Aaron Stutland, who's been on the podcast twice, one with Nancy Levin, all about journaling and their relationship with journaling, and they're really great interviews. I love all of those people, so they're fantastic. And another thing you can get is a free Wonder fragrance, my fragrance with good medicine. You can get a free one at one of the levels, and there's PDF guides. One is the deleted tracks, I'm calling, which is basically the tools, the journaling tools from the book that didn't make it into the book, not because they weren't good, but because I thought of them after the book had already gone to print. So there's a bunch of really cool things you can get. So check that out all over at my website. Grab a copy of the book for you, grab one for a friend, grab one for another friend, grab one for a couple friends, whatever you want to do. And if you want to see me, if you want to hang out with me, if you want to meet me, I will be in New York City the week the book comes out, the week of April 5th. That's the day the book comes out. And on April 5th, I'm doing a live podcast with my friend Christy Harrison, and we're having a bunch of special guests, and we will be hanging out and doing a podcast that day, which is going to be really, really fun. So if you want to get tickets for that, again, info on my website, info in the show notes, and make sure you go there, grab tickets. They're only $10, but you should really grab one for your friend. A bunch of people are actually coming in for this, so a lot of my friends are going to be there. It's just going to be a really great time. The next day, that's a Tuesday. On the next day, April 6th, on that Wednesday, that's the actual book launch party. And Gabby Bernstein and Jordan Bach are co-hosting that for me at Ginger Snap Organic, and we're going to be there hanging out, signing books. There's not tickets for that. A lot of you have been asking. No tickets, except the ticket is the price of the book. So just bring the price of the book, and I'll have books there available, and you can just buy a book there, and then that way you don't have to carry it there, and I can sign it, and Gabby can sign it because she wrote the foreword, and you can have Jordan sign it because he's in it, I think, and, we can all just hang out and give hugs, and it'll be a great time. So you should definitely come there, bring all your friends. And then on that Thursday, I'm actually going to be on a panel talk back after my friend's performance show. She's doing a one-woman show, and it's about eating disorders. So it's going to be really, really cool. I don't really actually know what to expect, but myself and Christy are going to be on the talkback panel after, and that's on Thursday night. I'll put the link to that in the show notes as well. If you're in town, if you want to come, you're invited, and it's going to be a really cool show. She seems like a really cool person. So I'm really excited to be in New York City. It's going to be a great time. I'm most excited to meet all of you guys, and I'm really excited about this episode. So if you want to help support the show, great way to do it is, to buy the book. A great way to do it is to leave a review on iTunes or to tell a friend about this episode. This episode in particular is really great about balance. It's really great about making your life as a whole really awesome, not just your resume, not just your body, not just your career, but your life as a whole. And I think it's a really important message. And we talk a lot about balance and moderation, and you're just really going to like this interview with Jason. So I'll just let Jason take it away. Here we go. Have a great week, you guys, and I hope to talk to you soon and see a lot of you in New York. Welcome back, guys. Today on the podcast, I have someone that I've been following for years, and I'm so excited to talk to. Founder and CEO of Mind Body Green and author of the really great book, WELLth, How I Learned to Build a Life, Not a Resume. Jason Wachob, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor.
So, first of all, like I told you before we started recording, congrats on your new book. That's huge. But before we get into the book, I would love, which I genuinely loved, like I said, but I'd love to talk to you about where you got your start and really zoom the lens back. And I know you've talked about it a bunch of times, but I think your story is so fascinating. And I'd love for you to talk a little bit about how you got to where you are. I know specifically you were a college basketball player, so I'd love to hear a little bit about your time with that and what that experience taught you that you've taken into your life now.
Sure, lots of good ones in there.
Lots of questions.
So yes, I played basketball at Columbia from 1994 to 1998. So a while ago, I think a couple of the major takeaways I learned from playing basketball. One, I think you learn a lot about, in my case, I learned a lot about losing. When I first got to Columbia, we were terrible and ended up actually being a decent team when I left. But early on, we lost a lot. And my coach, Armand Hill, who is actually now an assistant coach with the Los Angeles Clippers, used to always say, you learn a lot about losing. One is like, can you bounce back? Like, it can be contagious. You can't become complacent with losing. You can't accept it. And it's hard sometimes to bounce back when you're losing a lot. And so like, what can you learn and how can you grow from it? And how can you not accept it? Like, it's not okay. It's something you don't want to get used to. And then the second major takeaway was, how do you handle it? Do you blame other people? Do you, hide in a corner, or do you accept responsibility? Like, do you lose as a team? Can you rise above it? And so those are some, major lessons. I also a lot of simple things, which I think I learned from playing sports, like showing up on time, work ethic. My coach would always say, you can't, in practice, sometimes you go through the motions, and my coach would be all over us when that would happen, because you can't turn things on and off. Like, you can't show up in practice and not really put forth effort and then start to, think you can turn it on in the game. Like, you can't turn on and off. In terms of sports, you need, if you're playing hard, you got to play hard all the time. And so, moving on to the wellness journey. So, I left Columbia, and in 1998, there weren't really startups. What most people did back then was go to Wall Street, or if they had grades, maybe they became an attorney, or if they had an aptitude for science or medicine, maybe they went to med school. And so I decided to work on Wall Street and become a trader. I never had money growing up, really, and that was something that was attractive to me, and had a lot of friends who were traders, and thought, like, all right, this is cool. It sounds like, it's a lot of fun. It's very competitive. A lot of athletes went on to become traders because, it's like you're continuing to play, very competitive. Every day is like a new game. So I became a trader, and, shortly after did pretty well financially. But here I was, finally made enough money to pay off my school debt and, buy my mother a car and have all this, financial freedom. And it was like, the worst month of my life. My relationship was falling apart, and this juxtaposition, like this contrast. All of a sudden I've got all this money, and that yet like my relationship is falling apart, and I'm miserable, and it just like became so clear. Uh, Money doesn't buy happiness, and just that really hit home. And here I was my whole life thinking like I wanted this thing, and then I had it, and then it just I was empty. And so shortly left trading a couple years later and decided to become an entrepreneur, and various startups. Some you do learn more from the ones that don't work out. It's not a cliche. And found myself flying 150,000 miles domestic in a year. I was running an organic chocolate chip cookie company that was in every Whole Foods market in the country. And the flying combined with stress and an old basketball injury led to two extruded discs.
And you're super tall.
Yeah, 6'7", coach seat, not fun. So I had two extruded discs pressing on my sciatic nerve, excruciating pain.
Oh, man.
My right leg was like a lightning rod, and it was terrible. And I couldn't walk. And went to a surgeon, and he did the MRI and X-ray, and said, you need back surgery. So I was like, okay, nothing against surgery, but something I generally want to avoid. So sought a second opinion. He said the same thing. You need back surgery. And it was almost like an afterthought. He said, yoga might help. And so I was like, okay, I'll try some yoga. So I started doing like some light yoga, 10 to 15 minutes in the morning and at night. And then, started to feel better, and started down this path. And I started looking at things like spirituality and stress and nutrition and the environment. And I made a lot of changes in my life, and yoga was a big part of it. And over the course of a few months, I completely healed. So I never got back surgery. And so I was like, holy shit, everyone's got health wrong. Everyone thinks it's about vanity and weight loss. And I looked really good at the time, but I was falling apart. And I said, everyone's got this wrong. The solution to health, it's more nuanced, it's more holistic, it's East meets West, it's this lifestyle, mind, body, green. Mm-hmm. And then had the idea for the site, and the rest is sort of history.
Cool. That was amazing. You just answered like 8 of the questions that I had down. And no, it's great. No, it's perfect. And I have a bunch more stuff I want to pick up on in there. But when my family, a lot of people in my family have back pain, and I never really understood until I heard your interview about like another interview of yours before today, where you were talking about, how that pain is so intense. It really helped me relate to that. And it's such a great story that yoga was able to help you heal that. So yep. Can you talk a little bit about your yoga practice? I know one of my other guests on the show, one of my first guests, Tara Stiles, was, I think, your first yoga teacher?
Yeah, Tara was one of the first people at first.
She's so cool.
Yeah, I love Tara. She's a dear friend. And it was funny. So like when I first healed my back, I was just doing this at home. And so I healed my back, and I'm like, oh my God, yoga's awesome. But I didn't want to go to public yoga classes, because I'm like, I'm scared. Like, I'm fine. Like, I don't want to do anything to sort of screw up my back. And, a lot of classes can be intimidating. And I didn't go until my wife actually went to Strala to see Michael and Tara, and sort of gave me and then I remember, I'll never forget, like Colleen went to the class, and it was when Strala first opened, and I was waiting outside watching, and then I walked in and met Michael and Tara, and they like convinced me. I told them my story. They convinced me that Strala would be okay. And I went and sort of never looked back, and they became, I became a regular at Strala, and just really liked the way they focused on breath and movement and their attitude towards yoga. And like, I started going all the time, and, my practice evolved, where I love Strala, but then I started going other places, and I was going to public yoga classes everywhere. Um, and then also what's interesting, as Mind Body Green started to grow, I started to go less and less, and then went from a place where I was going to public yoga classes like 7 days a week to 3 times a week, and then once a week. And then I remember having a moment where it was like 6 weeks had passed and I haven't been to yoga, and I was like, what happened here? uh, so now my practice is on the weekends, I will do about 15 of 20 minutes of yoga at home. And that always works. And now I meditate every day, and I go back to the gym. I lift weights once a week. So it evolved, and it's this idea of, like anything in life, we evolve.
Yeah.
Our time commitments, our bodies, what we need, and so that's how my yoga practice has evolved.
Well, I think that's great, and I think that's a really good point to kind of the next thing I wanted to talk to you about, and what I really thought of as the really big theme of your book overall, which I was so happy about, and I have to be, which is balance and really finding what works for you and going through different stages. And, I have to be honest that, when I first, when your publicist told me about the book, I was like really excited because I knew you. And like I said, I followed Mind Body Green. I'm a contributor and I love it, but I didn't really know what to expect. And I have this background where I have the type of personality that gets super into things, and a couple years ago my eating disorder turned into orthorexia, so another book on health and wellness would probably not be the best thing for me. So I was like, and then I checked it out, and it was totally in line with what I preach on this show and what I'm so passionate about, which is having health be inclusive and not this exclusivity that can sometimes be in the health and wellness world. And that's really what Mind Body Green is, and that's so much what your book is, and that's really what you were saying your yoga practice is. So I would love if you could talk about that a bit. And I heard you say that you want, a long time ago, I think I heard you say that, like, you wanted originally Mind Body Green to be something that the people that you played basketball with who weren't into wellness or any of this sort of thing at all would really love and be interested in and entertained by. And can you talk about that philosophy and how that bleeds into your book?
Yeah, a couple things. A lot of good question. I have a lot of things there.
Yeah, I know. I keep asking like 12 questions in one.
So I guess I'll start with the last part. So in a lot of ways, the book, WELLth, is the book I wish I read 15 years ago. I wish it didn't exist. And it's this idea of, one, I think it would have saved me thousands of dollars at Barnes and Noble. But there tend to be books out there which are completely self-help or completely career or nutrition or fitness or relationships. And what I believe is to truly be your best self, to truly be happy, is a blend of mental, physical, spiritual, emotional, and environmental well-being. And like, it's all those pillars. And I wanted to write a book with a point of view and a voice that I think could speak to anyone, no matter what level they're at. And so that was one of the reasons why I wrote the book, to cross over to people, to not just preach to the choir, but to build a bigger church. And so far, I think we're receiving that feedback, which is good. And that is the idea of Mind Body Green. I think we're really good at sucking you in wherever you are in your wellness journey, and then going deeper. So like, once we have you in, you may want to go deeper and read longer form content, or take a video course, or explore different different areas, different topics. And that's what we're here to really make change. And we're whatever lane you come through, bring you in, and then hopefully, permeate through everything that you do. So I think that's what we're good at, to get to the back half of your question.
Yeah, it worked on me.
Good. And like, this idea of, like, you mentioned orthorexia and balance. So like, I'm a big believer in the middle path. And, I'll talk about it from a nutrition and exercise standpoint, and I'll also talk about it from a life and work standpoint. So from a nutrition and exercise standpoint, I'm 41, I'm 6'7", I'm probably 225 pounds. I, meditate daily, and I meditate for 20 minutes, and I, do Vedic meditation or TM. I repeat a mantra over and over silently. I do yoga twice a week for 15 minutes a day, and I'll go lift weights once a week. Um, and so and that's what I can do. That's what works for me. It's a lifestyle that works for me rather than me trying to say like, I'm going to run a mile every day or 3 miles. Like it just doesn't work. It doesn't fit within my life. Um, and so how could what's good for me like possibly be good for like a 5'2", 18-year-old woman who runs 10 miles a day?
Right.
Like that's insane. And so when we talk about fitness and nutrition, like it's just insane that like this one size fits all approach where there's a silver bullet approach where like what's good for you is good for everyone. Like that's just insane. And so what I've also found there is, we change as we grow. And so in my 20s, I joke that I thrived on a low carb, high martini and steak diet, even though I didn't really thrive, but like that worked. And I got really into yoga when yoga saved my life in my 30s, and then became vegetarian and then vegan. And then I got a parasite and basically went paleo to help recover from that. And now I would say I'm like a conscious omnivore. And I eat, I try to eat mostly vegetables, but like I still eat meat every once in a while, and eat fish. But it's this idea I've changed, I've evolved. So like I think throughout our lifetimes, like we have different needs, and that changes. And unless for serious health reasons, or you just know that you have to be all in, and some people function that way. I believe in this middle path, and finding what works for you, and creating a lifestyle that's sustainable. Because otherwise, if you go all in on something, and you become obsessive about it,
Yeah.
you're going to burn out, and then it becomes really tough, mentally, and it's not sustainable. And this idea of the middle path, and finding balance is, I think, the only thing that's sustainable. It's like this idea of like creating a life
Yeah.
versus trying to jam a diet or nutrition, a square peg into a round hole. And then on the work side, it's also this blend of, working your butt off, but also being able to let go. And so I think a lot of people professionally fall into, if you're a type A, you probably fall into the camp where you're just used to just charging ahead and banging down doors and making shit happen and powering through. And I think that you need that. Like I believe in having a strong work ethic, and I believe in making things happen. But there also comes moments where you're trying to jam down this door, but it's just not opening. And at those moments, you need to let go and take a step back. And whatever religion you believe in or don't believe in, this ability to like acknowledge that there's something bigger than you and let go, and like have that awareness, and say like, okay, like is this the right door here, or maybe it's like the door to my left, like it's am I doing the right thing? And so and people, what also happens is people also tend to fall in the other camp where they're not trying to jam open that door. They're lying on a couch saying, I'm going to manifest it, or I'm going to do affirmations, and that's going to bring me success. But that doesn't. You have to put forth the effort. So
Yeah.
once again, it's the middle path. Like you have to work hard, but you have to be able to let go, and you have to believe, in something greater than yourself. And it's that combination. It's really difficult. It's working hard and letting go.
Yeah. I want to get to this in a second, but the believe chapter of your book was really my favorite, I think, where you talk about that a lot. And that I think that's why religion exists, that's why spirituality exists, that there's so much that isn't in our control, and we have to just deal with that in life, and those things help us, or they help me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And but going back really quick to the first part of your answer, focusing on the body and the physical. And I just love what you're talking about balance and essentially moderation. And, I often say here that sometimes extremes are easy and moderation is the challenge. And I know for me, that kind of was the case for me. And I think a lot of people kind of enter the wellness world and they're so excited and they're like, oh, cool, veganism or this or that or whatever. And they just want to go all in. And then it's like, and food combining and oil pulling and, like every type of like thing you could get, because we just get, it's new and it's exciting. And then I think kind of the moderation can sometimes come later after that. And that's why I think your book is so great, because hopefully people can go right into the moderation. And, something I often say that really is like a different way of saying the tagline or the headline or whatever that's called of your book.
Sure.
Is that I'm always just like, try to make your life as a whole really beautiful, not just your body, and like you say, or not just your resume. And it's really the same concept for both. And so do you think, from being really such a huge leader in the wellness space, especially online and media, would you say that that's something that you see where people really go all in and then kind of have to peel back and be like, wait a minute, but pleasure and enjoying life and all of those things, and then add that back in?
Yeah, I see both. I see people definitely going all in and really going for it, then peeling it back, which I think is fine, and I think that's great. Yeah, but once again, it comes back to this idea of like you gotta find what works for you. I know some people who are all in, and they just have to be all in, and that works for them. Like they know that they knew who they are, they know their strengths and their weaknesses, and that's okay. Uh, but I think for some people who are looking to get started, the idea of all in is scary.
Yeah.
And so how do you start? It's like, how do you make incremental change? And to me, it all comes down to like, okay, I'm looking to live my best life. And I go back to these pillars: mental, physical, spiritual, emotional, and environmental well-being. So like looking at those pillars, which are sort of broken into different chapters of wealth, and like drilling down and saying like, okay, like this makes sense. Like I can do this. Like here are these things that I can do on a daily basis that like will make a big difference, but they're not big changes to my day. They're not big changes to, how I live my life. And I think, often the hardest step is the first one and the smallest one. And to me, it's life and success and happiness and all those things are, mostly a series of small steps. Typically, it's not like one huge monumental one, although sometimes it is. But I think typically for people, it's a series of small steps and small decisions.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting that it can be either way. I guess, in my case, it was really like going all in and then kind of peeling back and finding what works. And I think a lot of, like you were saying at the beginning with, what works for you isn't going to work for me, and it's not going to work for maybe someone listening. We all have to create, the Jason diet or the Katie diet, or really personalize our wellness practices to ourselves, and how we get there. It really doesn't matter. But I know for me, I wanted to just read a Mind Body Green article telling me exactly what to eat and how much to meditate and how many chia seeds and all of those things. But really, you have to, it's so individual, and you have to figure it out for yourself. And that's the process. Those things are just inspiration and what worked for someone else, but you really have to apply it on your own and figure it out. That's just something that I've learned. And I think it really speaks to your book of empowering people to do that.
Yeah, to me, it's all about finding what works for you. We're all so different. Our DNA, our makeup, our height, our weight, our job, everything. And so it comes down to, I'm just such a big believer in that. I can't stress it enough. It's finding what works for me, that's sustainable and is part of my life, and something that I'm excited about. Because I also believe if you're not excited about it, you're just not going to do it. Like
Yeah.
I hate running. I absolutely hate running. Like the last time I ran was my last basketball game, 20 years ago. My wife loves running, so like for her, running makes a lot of sense to be part of her routine. For me, it doesn't, because I would dread it and I just would not do it.
Yeah.
I love yoga, so that makes sense. I love meditation, that makes sense. And it comes back, life's too short, and you should, whatever you're doing, you should really try to enjoy it, because otherwise it's just you'll end up quitting.
Yeah, totally. So how long have you been meditating and doing TM?
So I've been doing Vedic like for 2 years now, like pretty, I never miss a day. Sometimes
Nice.
I don't do twice a day, but I always do once a day, and it's really been incredible.
Yeah, yeah, me too. That chapter of your book, or well, the Believe chapter of your book, like I said, was one of my favorites for sure. And I want to just tell people too that it's broken down in all these really cool chapters: eat, move, believe, heal, love, and they're all really pretty short. And at the end of them, there's these bulleted items that say like a quick deposit in your wealth account. I think that's what it says.
Yep.
And it's really great. It kind of sums up the chapter in like a really nice way. But one of the things you mentioned in the belief section was about meditation and visualization. So I would love, and obviously it's a part of your life like we've been talking about, but I would love to know, with this book launch going on, which is such a busy thing, and this is probably like the biggest, thing of your personal career that you've done so far.
Yep.
How is that going for you, and like how are you taking care of yourself during that, and what was the process of writing the book like?
Sure. So it's definitely, as I joke, this is a big side project from, running a startup and
Yeah.
being the CEO. Uh, there is a lot I've done. I was just on the West Coast. I've been traveling. I've already done like 7 or 8 events. I'm doing a lot of interviews. It's a lot, and sometimes it's emotionally exhausting. But I also, it's an incredible opportunity, and something I also am very, aware of. Like, I wrote a book. Like, that's awesome. I
Yeah,
want to
so
enjoy
cool.
this. So even though I have moments where I'm like, I'm just so tired. Like, I just really want to be aware, and like, take those few moments and just really recognize and enjoy that this thing is happening, and that's special, and don't lose sight of that.
Yeah.
Um, so that's definitely a part of it, and I think the way I've been, taking care of myself is, once again, I think is largely been meditation. I think it's something that's, I meditated this afternoon between interviews, and I just can't stress it enough. This idea, I think this idea of stress, I'm talking about the stress of running a company and being on a book tour, but the reality is everyone has stress.
Right.
Stress follows you wherever you are. Stress, if you think, all I need to do is this, whether it's, if I have this, this house or this job, or if I accomplish this thing, everything will be easier. Like, sure, like there are things that, when they happen, and money can help and resources can help, absolutely. But stress just changes. It changes. You have different problems. Stress just never goes away. You have to manage it. And so that's been a big thing for me in my meditation practice as I've gone through this process. Um, and then the other question you were asking about how the book came about.
Well, that is I'm curious about too, but also I'd
Oh,
love to hear about your writing process with having, a
oh
huge
yeah,
full-time job. How did you fit that in, and what was that like?
yes. So the advice I got was write as much as you can whenever you have time, and do not go back and edit. And so what I did was every time I flew, I still travel a lot, unfortunately. 2 summers ago, every time I flew, I did not opt for the Wi-Fi on the flight. I just sat and wrote.
Cool.
And by the end of the summer, I had, I think, like 50,000 words,
Wow.
no editing, and then, went back with my literary agent and really, did some editing, and honed it, and had a proposal. And so, a lot of the book it's a prescriptive memoir. So a lot of it's memoir where I just truly just sat down and wrote from the heart and didn't look back. And I think writing is something you just have to, put your head down and do. There's this great quote. I forget who the writer was, but he The quote is, it's, he's asking, like, people ask, like, when do you write? Like, only when inspiration strikes. And the line is, inspiration strikes precisely every day at 9 a.m.
Yeah, I've heard that too.
It's like Somerset Maugham, I think. But so every time I flew, I wrote. I just went down, heads down, and wrote and wrote and wrote.
Cool. Yeah, that's my favorite time to journal actually is on planes, and I like wish there wasn't an option for Wi-Fi sometimes because I really enjoyed that time when I couldn't be connected,
Yep.
and and forced me to do it. And I totally understand about not waiting for inspiration to hit and just writing. I think the writing process probably for you with the memoir was probably pretty cathartic. I have a book coming out in April about journaling, and so I always
Congratulations.
thank you. I always like to ask people about the writing process and then about journaling. Have you been a journaler ever in your life? And did
No.
this, will you be now after writing? How did it feel for you to like process your life through writing?
It was good. It was, enjoyed it. I think the one thing I've learned, and just in general, in blogging and writing, when something does hit, you just really have to write. So if I ever do another book, or whether it's a blog post, like when you have an idea, or like, when inspiration, quote unquote, does strike, you really have to just go and do it.
Yeah.
You can't wait. Like, you need to go. And I've just found that too, like in business and life, if I'm going for a walk and there's an idea, whether it's business related or put, like, I have to take the notes. I
Yeah.
have to get it out, because otherwise you lose it.
Yeah, yeah. My book is actually called "Let It Out" because,
Oh, that's awesome.
yeah, because I've felt like that before, where you're almost like pregnant with an idea, and that thank God there's a note section in my phone because I always have to, just like write something down quick and I can get back to it
Oh, totally,
later, or
totally.
an idea that sometimes turns into a blog post, sometimes it's something for that is an idea for a podcast, or sometimes it's just for me in my journal. But I
Yep.
totally know that feeling.
Yep. It's important. Got to do it.
Yeah. And then also, sharing vulnerably about yourself in the book. Like, I feel like I know you really well because I read the book, and I feel like I know like everything about your life. Like, how are you feeling about that being out in the world, and everyone being able to consume that and have that? Like, are you excited about it? Like, what are your thoughts?
Uh, you know, I, I thought it was important. I think, once again, I want to attract people who may not pick up a book about self-improvement. And I thought it was really important to be vulnerable, to be honest, to show how imperfect I am, especially because in this day and age with social
Yeah.
media, I think we project a lot of perfection, specifically in health and wellness and self-improvement.
Yeah.
So I wanted to, like, I joke, I think I am, exceptionally unexceptional in a lot of ways. Like, I think I am relatable and normal. I was a normal person, with the exception of being 6'7", and had insecurities, had these things I've dealt with, things that, some things I regret, some things I don't, and I've, was not perfect, far from it, and I really wanted to get that across, because I think a lot of what we show out there is just pure perfection and people that are unrelatable. So I just really wanted to get the point across that I'm a normal guy, just like you, or if you're a girl, like, I wanted people to know me, and I am very much that guy who, if you maybe saw at a bar, you'd have a drink with and say hello and strike up a conversation. Like, I'm just like everyone else.
Yeah.
So,
I think that's so important because you're right, especially in this digital social media age, people guru-ize people, or I don't even know
yep.
if that's like a term, but it should be because I did that, and I wish that I would have had this book a couple years back. It would have saved me a lot of stress about thinking like, oh, this person I look up to and respect would never eat that, and I can't make choices based on what I want to do. I'm focused on what everyone else is doing. And this book really, like you said, it's a bunch of books in one, and it's not even that long. And I think,
Good.
yeah, I think it's really good. So I want to talk about the love chapter. That was one that I really liked. And I'm really obsessed with this concept of having two romantic soulmates and then a third soulmate, friend mate that I think you talk about in that chapter. So could you talk about that idea for everyone listening and how those people have played out in your life? I really liked that concept.
Sure. I think we need to, I think, soulmates, it's something a lot of people have opinions on. It's, you either, you think you have one or you want one. And I think we're thinking about soulmates in the wrong way. And I think it comes back to operating from a place of abundance. And, so going back to the two types of romantic soulmates, I think there's the soulmate that is that painful relationship that, helps us get from A to B. It's the one where we grow a lot, maybe not in the way we want to, but we grow from that relationship. And those relationships can often be painful but they're important. And it goes back to this idea of, at the time, the great Steve Jobs quote, you can only connect the dots,
Yeah.
Going backward, not looking forward.
I say that all the time on this podcast after people tell their stories because it's so
great.
cool to see that.
Yeah.
So I love that you said that because I literally say it like almost every podcast.
Oh, I love that. So I think those are the types of relationships where at the time they're painful and you're like, oh my God, this person broke my heart, or, why are they doing this? This is terrible. Why is this happening? But you can look back and sometimes it takes a while where you can say like, oh wow, like I learned so much and this is how I grew. And so I think that's the soulmate, the painful one that gets us from A to B, but are important in our journey. I think it's funny, like Gary Zukav, who wrote Seed of the Soul, sort of frames up soulmates that way. Like he believes that they get you from A to B on your spiritual journey. And then there's a second type of soulmate, the other romantic kind, which I believe is, the fairy tale soulmate. It's the kind that, that makes you better, the kind that doesn't bring out your insecurities, probably like the first one, but the one that makes you feel more secure, the one that, I believe you're meant to be with forever, the kind that, when 1 and 1 maybe equals 1.5 in the first type of soulmate, 1 and 1 I think equals 3, and I do believe in that type of soulmate, and I will add too that like I do believe soulmates can, make you better as a person, but I think you can be very happy without one. I think it's sort of the icing on the cake, so to speak. And then there's the third type of soulmate, which I think, they're abundant, the non-romantic soulmate in all of our lives, the kind, whether it's the friend you've known forever who, you can lose touch with and then you reconnect with and you pick up right where you left off, or the people, who were in your life at precisely like the right time, who, you connect with and help you, get to wherever you need to go, spiritually in your life, and they're out there, they're everywhere. And I think, once again, it's like reframing this idea, like soulmate is not, I think most people think of the soulmate as like the second kind, like that one romantic kind, like, that we see in the movies, and sure, yeah, I think that's there, but I also think there are other types of soulmates, and once again, it goes back to like reframing how we think about that and operating from, a thought process centered around abundance and not deficit.
Yeah, I think it's so important that whole chapter was in your book, because that's kind of an aspect that and again, going back to like the digital social media age that we live in, I think community and tribe kind of gets lost, and you can build that online, but you really need those people in real life that you can like touch and squeeze and snuggle and like bring you soup when you're sick. And even though it's great to have them online, I think I'm really glad that part was in your book too, to cultivate that, because it's so important.
Oh, good. That's good to hear.
Yeah. And it often gets lost, I feel too. So the last chapter in your book, this isn't a spoiler alert, but it's called Laugh. And
yep.
Obviously you think that laughter is a key to overall a wealthy life, but I would love if you could answer a question from my favorite comedian that he asks on his podcast. And what is the hardest time or the time you've laughed the hardest? There's one in your book that actually made me LOL, if you can't think of one.
Yeah. God, I laugh a lot. I, I'd have to go with the one in the book, but I don't want to give that one away.
Okay, well, that's perfect. That's perfect. That'll really help people to go get the book, because I was just kind of like skimming that. It's on literally the last page, and I was just like skimming it, and I wasn't expecting like the story to be that funny, and then I was like, oh my God, it's so funny. So we'll tease that, and everyone should go read that part for sure.
Good. I like that. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. So I have a couple more questions, but I want to kind of go back to Mind, Body, Green, because I feel like I kind of skimmed over that and got into the book quicker, which is fine, but I want to hear a little bit more about its inception and what that time was like for you, because I think, as far as I know, I feel, or I guess maybe it's just me and what I was into, but you were the first user-generated content site that I really followed, or one of and I feel like that model has been replicated in different niches now so many times, and it just continues to grow and grow and grow. And as a contributor, I love the concept of you're really giving people a platform to share their work.
Yep.
So I would love if you could talk about, like kind of how that idea came to be of helping to empower other people. And then as it continues to grow, I would love to know your, kind of vision for it as the landscape of online media evolves as well.
Sure. So it happened accidentally. I was on my health journey and I started blogging. I would do like a blog post every day. And I was smart enough to know I didn't know everything. And so I'm on my health journey. I'm meeting all these amazing people, these doctors, these yogis, these nutritionists. And, a lot of them became some of my closest friends. And somewhere along the way, it kept on coming up where they would say, do you accept guest posts? I think Huffington Post was the only show in town back then. And I said, sure. And a couple of them started to guest blog. Tara was probably one of our first guest bloggers. And it seemed like a good idea. And it just sort of steamrolled, and more people I started to meet, and more people started to guest blog. And then it, we kept on growing and growing. And where we are today, we have 4,000 contributors who write for us around the world. And so I think the thing that, has separated us from the pack, we also do original content also. So we have a whole editorial team and we're doing more original content. But it's a couple things. One is, we believe in quality over quantity. So we don't, we really believe, we have to put out great content. And so we edit stuff, we turn stuff down, we go back and forth. Like we try not to be repetitive and run the same stuff over and over. So like we really work hard at like giving our community of readers and people who watch videos like the best content. Whereas I think a lot of people who do user generated just like pump it out, and I think that's ultimately not a good thing for anyone. So we call it curated user generated. So that's like one distinction. And then I think from the community standpoint, community's always been, one part of our values. Like if you come to our office, it's on the wall. It's something that's really important to us. And so we try to, embrace that. And it comes from an authentic place. Community is in our DNA. That's how this site started. There was no master plan. It just sort of happened. And we love our community, and it's something we constantly think about here. And what does that look like as we grow? Like, what do those relationships look like? Like, how do we support the community? And so, that's how it sort of happened. And community is everything. And it's, I love our community. It's so amazing to, connect with people who are doing great things in the world and are inspiring. And it just sort of, it keeps us going. So I love our community, and I love where we've gone and where we're going, and it's just sort of really fulfilling to see us touch people's lives and be part of it with a larger community of like-minded people.
Yeah, well, I'm happy to be one of those 4,000. Like I
Yes, you
said,
are.
yeah. There's this one post that I wrote that ironically was the first one I ever wrote for Mind Body Green, like 3 or 4 years ago. And I've written a bunch since then, but for whatever reason, that one gets more, like, still to this day, it will get like tweeted, and for whatever reason it like went like, I don't want to say viral, but like a lot of people read it and commented and shared it, which is so cool. But it was about morning routines, and
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, and it's I think it was like 14 ways to start and end your day with joy or something like that.
19 ideas to start with.
19, yeah.
39,000 shares. Nice.
Wow. Oh my gosh, that's so cool. That's so cool that you know of it. Yeah, that's so cool. Yeah, it was so cool, and it brought a lot of people to my blog and my podcast. So I'm forever grateful for you and Mind Body Green, because that was
That's
so
awesome.
cool. Yeah, yeah, it was like really the first like big thing that I wrote, which is
Right
super
right
cool.
out of the gate.
Yeah, the first time I
Right
did
out of
it.
the gate, 39,000.
I know, and unfortunately, I've written a bunch since then. None of them, like, now they all have to live up to that one, which is like big shoes to fill.
No, it's fine. Facebook has been, it's Facebook and social media. No one quite gets the shares they used to anymore, but that's
Yeah.
okay.
But it was definitely fun. I was like, what is happening? This is so cool.
That's
And then
awesome.
like a few like months later, it would be the same thing and over. It was super cool. I loved it. I still do. It's probably will happen. I'll put it in the show notes, and it'll probably happen again. So just a couple more serious questions before we get to the quick fire ones. But something that we talk about a lot on this podcast is body image. Since, that was my biggest struggle, and a lot of the women that listen struggle with that. And I think, in the wellness movement, it can kind of, which, you and I both are such a big part of, I think, like we were kind of mentioning, without getting into moderation, there can be some dangers with the isolation and being obsessed with it, and it can kind of become almost a new class system. So are there any ways that you really break things down, or advice for people to, in the last, years that you've been talking about this in a really inclusive way, are there any ways that you can see, as the wellness industry grows and grows and grows, how to prevent that from happening? And my question is, where do you see the wellness and holistic health space in, say, 10 years, and where would you like to see it in relation to those things that we were talking about earlier?
Wow, there's a lot of, so with body image, I will start with, I think it's really important for people to be grateful for where they're at. If people have goals, that's fine, but I think you have to be grateful for your body and where you're at and what you have. I think, once again, like this idea of looking at, perceived perfection over there or here is dangerous. And, there's always going to be someone who's got more money. There's always going to be someone who's better looking. There's always going to be someone who's got, better abs, or whatever the hell it is you're measuring. It's just a really dangerous game that will lead you down a dark and dangerous and self-destructive path. So on body image, I would emphasize that. And in terms of like the holistic health world and where it's going, what I think is particularly exciting is this idea of Eastern meets Western. So a lot of things that, quote unquote Eastern, that we talk about and practice, things like meditation and yoga and nutrition and eating more plants, and practices like acupuncture and the power of the mind and healing. Science is catching up in all these places. And so I think that's really exciting when science comes along and there's a study and there's research which says things like, there is a connection between the mind and body, and there's research that they're in fact one, or the idea of like your microbiome, like your gut bacteria has an influence, which is like influenced by nutrition, as like a direct correlation between like health and longevity. Like, these are all exciting things. So that when we talk about things like, eat your spinach or you should do meditation, when science can can back that up, I think that's really powerful. And I think we're just getting started there. And this idea of, technology and science catching up with all these practices, these holistic practices is kind of awesome and exciting.
Cool. Very cool. So now some fun, personal, quick-fire questions.
Okay,
so,
I'm ready.
You ready? Just say like the first thing that comes to your mind for these. So walk us through your typical morning routine, some of the specifics, first couple of things you do when you wake up in the morning, and how that affects how the rest of your day goes.
Sure. So I wake up, don't set the alarm. I tend to wake up around 7 a.m. I will ideally brush my teeth and then hop back into bed and sit up straight. And I will meditate for 20 minutes, repeating my mantra silently over and over. Then hop out of bed. I will make my smoothie, which is, I call it almond chocolate thunder. It is almond milk, almond butter, chocolate protein powder, and frozen blackberries. And I'll put that in the Vitamix. And then
a little bit of thunder.
Yep. And then I will have black coffee with maybe a little bit of almond milk sometimes. I absolutely love coffee. And we'll drink the coffee and then grab the Wall Street Journal and I'll read that with my wife Colleen. And I love the print edition, so like read the paper, then check email around then. I will not, if I check email the first thing out of bed, it's just never good. Not that I get bad emails in the morning, but like your day begins once that happens. Like work begins. And so I try to avoid that till around like reading the paper, and then I will, get dressed and walk with my wife to work. We work together, which is nice, and our work is only 4 blocks away from our apartment, so we have a nice commute.
Nice, that's so cool. I follow her and both of you on Instagram.
Oh, awesome.
So now what about the evening routines and the evening rituals, the last few things you guys do before bed? And maybe you could even weave into this question. I've been really great tonight about asking you like 12 questions in one, and you've been like rolling with it. So in that one, go with how, I would really love to know how you two work together and then, switch that off at the end of the day and just go back into being in your relationship.
Sure. So like we work pretty well together. What's so great, we're so passionate about wellness. It's our life, and some of our closest friends are people in the wellness industry, and it's our life. Like we're really passionate about it. That can be a problem because we're so passionate about what we do. We tend to work a lot, and we tend to never shut off. So it's something we're aware of. We have to catch ourselves every once in a while and say like, okay, no more work for tonight, and like try to like watch House of Cards on Netflix or something like that to sort of de-stress and wind down. But like we both see that as a blessing. Like we love what we do. We're so passionate. We actually work well together. We work very differently, and it's complementary. But we have to watch out for working too much. It's a good problem to have. How we wind down is different. I can, I can just let anything go for the most part at night. So like whether that's, I could drink like, a large coffee, I could be working on the serious Excel spreadsheet and then just shut it off and go to bed. Whereas Colleen is very different. She needs to like wind down. So I have that ability, which to sort of put things away mentally, which I think meditation has helped, and I think is absolutely a necessity if you're an entrepreneur, because there's always something that's hanging over your head. There's always information you don't have what you would want. There's always ambiguity. So I've gotten quite good at being very comfortable with ambiguity and being able to like mentally store things away at night. So at night I can just sort of shut it off whenever I'm done. I'd say every night is different, but when I'm done, I'm done. I shut it off and I can go to bed.
Cool. What's your favorite color?
Columbia blue.
Oh, this is a good one. Transition to the next question. So, do you still follow basketball?
I do.
Did you make a bracket for
I did
March
not.
Madness? No?
I did not.
Do you still like watch your team and go back and to your?
I went to a game at Columbia this year. Columbia was pretty good, but Yale was better. Yale had the big upset this year in the first round. They beat Baylor. Yeah, I still watch basketball. I actually watch a lot more NBA than college. I feel like college has gotten a little bit worse. But I love the NBA and will watch games when I can. Not a ton, but I enjoy watching. I actually, when I was in San Francisco, I was able to go to a Golden State Warriors game, which was a lot of fun.
Do you think that the team aspect of basketball I think it's probably one of the most team sports there. I love basketball. My grandpa used to coach college basketball, so
Oh, no way. Where do you coach?
Michigan State.
No way. What's his name?
Gus Ganakis. He's 2 coaches ago.
Oh, wow. I love, too funny.
Yeah. He's 90 years old and he still travels with the team and
That's
does the
awesome.
radio.
That's awesome.
Yeah, he does the radio. But anyway, so I'm really into it and I feel like it's such a team sport. I grew up with it. Do you bring that into your company culture, running a huge team now?
I try. It's funny. I believe, hiring is very hard, and I actually love hiring ex-athletes. I think, once again, like there are certain things you learn from competing at a high level. One is, you're a team player.
Yeah.
You play well with others. You show up on time. Little things which some people aren't good at. You work hard. Like I always say, like you can't teach effort. You handle adversity. You're competitive. There's a sense of urgency. You like to win. You don't like to lose. I think those things, like if you played college sports or athletics at a high level, like you have those things. Mm-hmm. And those are things you want in team members. So I always love, we have some former college athletes here. We have an ex-All-American lacrosse player from Princeton, and then a woman who played soccer at Davidson, actually where Steph Curry went. I love athletes. I think you learn so much about life and being competitive and accountable from sports. So.
Yeah, the stuff you can't teach. Like I think I heard you say in the Lewis House interview that thing that maybe your coach said to you, that you can't teach height.
Yep.
Yeah, I remember hearing that, and I'm really excited to tell my grandpa about it. And as soon as I heard that, I was like, I'm going to send this podcast that I do with Jason to my grandpa, because I think he'll actually listen to this one. He'll like it.
I love it.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it. So, hi, Poppy, because he's probably listening now.
That's awesome.
Okay, a couple more questions. Favorite vegetable?
Brussels sprouts.
Favorite fruit?
Avocado.
Favorite hour of the day?
I like so many.
That's a good thing.
Yeah, I like all of them. I don't know if I can.
Okay, that's okay. Favorite day of the week?
Friday is always fun.
What are you scared of, but you're doing anyway to challenge yourself right now?
I don't really get scared, to be honest. I don't think you can if you do what I do. The unknown doesn't really scare me, and I think the biggest challenge entrepreneurs have is moving ahead and moving into the unknown and never having enough information. So.
Cool. What's the best meal you've eaten in the last week?
Oh, wow. I lived in San Francisco for a year with my wife, and we live in New York now, and we were just there, and there's this great place called La Taqueria, which is this old school taqueria in the Mission in San Francisco, which is like a total dive, but they have the most amazing tacos, and the ingredients are like so fresh, and it's cheap, and like it was just so great to go back there and get like a great taco with like huge, tons of beans and guacamole, and it was just like amazing. So that was like the best meal I had.
Now I'm like hardcore craving Mexican food for tonight.
Yeah, I think I may have to do that too.
Sounds so good. What's your ideal day look like?
Uh, it differs, but I love waking up and getting meditation in and having, reading the paper with my wife and walking together and having like a great productive day at work, and then, going out for like a nice dinner somewhere. There's a great Mexican spot actually, or in a couple blocks away from our office, which we love going to, and that's sort of like a nice day during the week. So.
Cool. Nice. If you could have a superhero power for a day, what would it be and why?
Wow. Uh, I think everyone will want the ability to like see into the future, right?
Everyone usually says fly. That's like the go-to one, but I think
Oh,
see into the
fly.
future is super cool.
Yeah. Or I always say like my favorite superhero is Batman because he's like a real person. He's
Yeah.
got no superpowers.
Yeah. Cool. So you're having a dinner party and you can invite 5 people. What would you make? Who would you invite? And what do you hope someone would turn and ask you? And what do you really hope that they don't ask you that you just don't feel like talking about?
Oh, wow. So I would definitely have a lot of chips and guacamole. Definitely have
Nice.
margaritas. I would have my family. I would have my wife. I would have my mother. I would I don't know. There's a lot of people I'd want to throw in there. Um, what would
Tara.
Tara, Mike? There's a lot of. I have to say that's
I'm happy to
5.
come with the
You
if you
can come.
need.
You're in. You're in. What would
I'll
we?
bring some guac. I make a mean guac.
There you go. What do we want to talk about? I don't know. I'd see where the conversation goes.
Nice. Anything that you just won't feel like talking about that you feel like you have to talk about all the time?
Uh, no, I think I'm pretty, uh, I'm fairly open. So,
Nice. What's the best advice you've ever gotten?
uh, don't settle from my mother. Don't settle for less.
Cool. Where did you grow up?
I grew up on Long Island in Manhasset.
Oh, okay, cool. So you're trapped on, speaking of an island, you're trapped on a deserted island and you can only bring with you one person, one TV show to binge watch, one movie, one food, and one book.
So I'd bring my wife. Show, I don't know. The practical answer would be something like survival related.
Yeah.
At the
Like
moment,
Survivor.
yeah, or one of those do-it-yourself shows about.
Yeah.
But at the moment, I would probably say House of Cards because that's what I'm binge watching right now.
Nice.
Um, Book, I'd probably have to go to like, uh, I don't know. Maybe the Bible, just because I haven't read it since I was like a kid, and
A lot of people say that for this
it's so
question.
deep, and there's so
Yeah.
many stories, and you can interpret it like it could keep you busy for a very, very long time.
Yeah, that's a good
You
practical
don't want to
answer.
bring like The Alchemist, which is a great book, but you'll plow through, and then
Yeah.
you know. Where Charlie Knowles said he would bring the Bible and WELLth. Those would be his 2 books. And then
Nice.
Charlie said that publicly. And I just love avocados and guacamole. So I would just be all over that on the island.
That's perfect. That actually sounds pretty fun. So, what is your favorite movie or a movie that you could recommend, a movie you've been liking recently or anything in that category?
Uh, hmm. What have I seen recently? Um,
Or a favorite that just like from forever?
I really liked the film Joy.
Oh, me too. It really, after I watched it, I swear I was just like so inspired, and I just like felt like such a boss, and I wanted to just like get stuff done.
Yeah, talk about like adversity and willpower.
Yeah,
A great
it
story.
really inspired me. I thought it was really well done.
Yeah, I really like that one.
What about in music? What song that you've been like listening to on repeat lately, or one that you just really like from forever?
I love all sorts of music. I love the Grateful Dead. I love the Beach Boys. Actually, I saw the Brian Williams documentary.
Oh yeah,
film.
with
John Cusack had the documentary. Like, I love that. That was exceptional. So like, I'll go with that. That and Joy for movies, and like the song that, like, I just go back to Pet Sounds and how amazing that album was, and I'll go with like at the moment, God Only Knows. That song is just so great.
Yeah, totally. So what's your favorite thing about your life right now?
I just am so blessed to do what I do. I love Mind Body Green. I love the community. I love the amazing people we meet. I just everything. So I'm pretty happy.
Cool. What advice would you give to your 25-year-old self?
It'll all be okay. It just may take a while.
Phew. Good. All right, last question. Thank you so much for being here, Jason. This has been great. So, as you know, the name of my blog and the name of this podcast is The Wellness Wonderland. So, when I offer that to you, to live in a wellness wonderland, what comes up? What does that mean to you?
I think it's our office.
I need to come to your office.
Yeah, if you're in New York, come by.
I'm going to be there for my book launch in the first week of April.
Oh, yeah, shoot us a note. Come by.
Cool.
Our office is great. We have 100 plants. We have all this like great art featuring people in our community. We have a meditation room. We've got coconut water. We've got gluten-free beer.
Oh my gosh.
We've got books. It's, I love it. So our Wellness Wonderland is the Mind Body Green headquarters in Brooklyn.
That's so cool. Well, yeah, it sounds a lot like my office, where there's only one of us.
That's good. Sometimes that's good.
I do have a lot of plants, so if they count.
Awesome.
Well, this was so great. I really genuinely love your book, like I said, and thank you so much for coming on the show, and thank you everyone for listening.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Katie.
Thanks for listening. You made it all the way to the end. I'll be back next week, but until then, let's stay inspired and keep this conversation going. So tweet at me at Katie Dalebout and our guest with your aha moments from this conversation. And like the Wellness Wonderland on Facebook, so we can all hang out there and discuss how inspired we are and how we'll apply it in our daily lives. And never miss another episode or post from me by signing up for email updates on thewellnesswonderland.com. See you back in Wonderland.